Um, well, all I can tell you is buckle up.
Come on.
Because if you haven't figured out by now, I'll just kind of just go.
Yep.
And, you know, it's good to just go back and hear the audio stuff back on the website and just hear things that mean something to you. If you don't take notes, you ought to start doing those sort of things, because sometimes something will stick out to you, and you need to hear that tomorrow, right? It kind of works that way with dreams as well. When you get a dream, it's wisdom to be prepared, so you can write those things down. Because even though it's real clear at 4 in the morning, it may not be clear at 9 in the morning.
That's right.
Or whenever. Right? So it's important to be prepared, and it's important to take the initiative to believe that God's going to give you something that's worth writing down.
There you go.
Right? If you're like me, I've got notes on my phone. That thing is loaded up with notes. So, anyhow, good evening. I'm actually going to hit on 2 words tonight. As in worship, the Lord just unctioned something else that I'm going to start with. And so I'm going to get into that. But first, I've got, the Lord said before I left, He said, grab 2 books, you're going to give 2 away. The only condition is that you're actually going to read it. So, I'm going to give you one Sunday.
It's good, I read it.
Did you read it? It's easy to read. I wrote it for people like me that, you know, my mind is just doing this, and so I need stuff to be able to fit in a little window of time. You know what I mean? I don't want to make excuses for myself, but that's just how I tend to be. I want to get into something first before we get into the voices in our head.
Come on.
You like that? We're going to redeem the voices in our head a little bit, and it's not going to sound like a bunch of crazy things. If you understand something about the Word, being He is the Word, then you understand that the words are containers that carry something.
That's right.
Okay, they always have a message behind them, good, bad, or in between, but words carry a message. And so when we're going to get into the voices in our head, what we're talking about is that the words that we're hearing, the words that we've experienced, the things we've been through, they're still talking.
There you go.
Right? And they have something to say. And actually, if you go and study, your body has memory cells that it maintains, and it actually has the capacity to maintain something like over 1 million years worth of memory or something. It's extraordinary, the ability that your brain actually has. And we think we're overwhelmed with our however many years, but actually you have the capacity to handle a lot of memories. But what's important about your memories is that they are the ones that are worth holding on to. I was listening, and I posted on Facebook the other day something I actually did not know. But within 24 to 48 hours, something that's on your mind, you have the ability to sift through it and decide whether it's going to occupy your mind or get rid of it. Your brain literally is created to give a timeline for how long it's going to stay. So that's why it's important that we deal with things quickly.
There you go.
Right? I'm already on the second part, and I got to go on this first thing. I'm just excited about this because it will help you to analyze what you're hearing and why you're hearing it. They ain't going to work, enemy. So, what I'm going to go after first, though, is the fear of man.
There you go. Yeah.
And most of you think the fear of man is along the lines of being afraid to say something. But the fear of man actually is a multifaceted thing. And what I want to emphasize is the thing that the Lord taught me. He said, I'm going to break you from the fear of man. That was probably 2012, thereabouts. And at that point in time, I was, flowing a whole lot in the prophetic, and it still is that way, but it was a whole lot then. And I've never been one to shy away. If I knew God said something, I'm going to just tell you. Without sugarcoating, without twisting it, right? Because you don't know why it's important for somebody to hear what you're hearing the same way that you're hearing it needs to be conveyed. So if you start playing around with it, then you may mess some stuff up that they need to hear. You understand? So it's important that you don't filter out what you're hearing apologizing for what God is saying. Okay? So, but the fear of man, the Lord told me, He said, and you understand with God, He said this in a difficult place. And then about 2 years later, He finished the conversation up. See, don't ever think just because God started saying something that He's done talking about it, because a lot of times He'll pick up the conversation like it was never stopped, and it's 2 years later and you're hearing the rest. So it's important that you don't draw conclusions when you've got part of the conversation, and because He hadn't said anything else, that there's nothing else to be heard. All right? But a couple of years later, He said, you know, it's just as important that you be free to speak when I tell you to speak as it is for you to be quiet when you need to be quiet. In other words, it's important to be so free from everybody else that when they come at you, you don't have to respond. The message I really wanted to preach that God doesn't want me to get into is the message of no reputation. When you're so free from trying to defend who you think you are, that you got to prove it to everybody. You know, I was raised like this is how we are, and all those things that we do, and then we've got to prove it to everybody and uphold our family name. But you've been born again. You got a new family name. So you don't have to maintain the history of your elders or anybody else. You are a new creation in Christ, and all that stuff's been passed away. So you do not have a reputation to uphold. In fact, Jesus said He made Himself of no reputation. Though being in the form of God, He made Himself a servant. So He didn't go around with His robe on, and He could have, and He didn't go around with His crown on, but He could have. He went around serving everybody, even whenever they were talking bad about Him. But He didn't change who He was and what He was commissioned to do based on what anybody else said or how they treated Him. Come on, those are some nuggets right there. I just kind of got God to let me preach my message anyway. Not really. He told me I could touch on it, so all right, Lord. I love the message because it'll transform your life. You understand? But it won't transform your life unless you're free from the fear of man.
That's right.
Meaning that you can come at me and I'm just going to love you and I'm going to let you be wrong and I'm not going to have to prove it.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
See, Jesus, whenever He was up on the cross, the scripture says He was as a lamb, He was silent before the slaughter.
Yes, He was.
He didn't say a word. When they were accusing Him, do this right here, we will believe. He didn't respond because He was so free from the fear of man and the accusations and the reputation that they wanted Him to try to uphold to prove who He was, that He didn't respond out of love. If He would have engaged in the chaos,
Right.
He would have dropped the ball for all of humanity to be born again. So rather than drop the ball, He stayed true to who He was supposed to be and what He was to carry out, and didn't drop the ball for my sake and your sake. How many are thankful for that? Come on, He stayed on the cross and was silent. Father, except one thing. What did He say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're going to do. And then He had one other conversation that we know of with the thief on the cross. I tell you the truth, that today you will be with me in paradise.
Yeah, that's right.
2 conversations. The thief got saved, and forgiveness was released to the crowd.
Praise God.
Listen, this is all while being beaten beyond recognition of a man and not saying a word. Prophesy to us which one's hitting you. And He didn't engage. It wasn't just because He was holy, it was because He was carrying out the way that man is supposed to be in the earth. Come on.
That's right.
Listen, it wasn't just because He was doing the right thing as an example for me and you. But sometimes we're so caught up in trying to protect our image that we forget about His. Right?
Yeah.
See, I am bearing his image. I've been made in his likeness. I haven't been made in my daddy's likeness. I haven't been made in my mama's likeness. I haven't been made in any of those likenesses. I've been made in his likeness when I got born again. So the image I bear now is his, not mine. I like the saying of where I'm a dead man walking. Well, you can't kill a dead man.
That's right.
You understand?
Yeah.
If you lose track of your life, then you'll find it. But if you hang on to your life, reputation, turmoil, junk, all the stuff, you're going to lose it. You actually start living whenever you let go of trying to live and do everything your way.
Thank you, Lord.
Then life starts getting easier. Why? Because the pressure of trying to maintain an image that you were never supposed to uphold is gone.
That's right.
And then you're free to fail and get back up. Right? And people can come at you and don't even know what they're talking about, but assume.
There you go.
And you don't even have to prove them wrong.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
Come on. Y'all ready for me to go on something else?
You're doing good.
Oh. It'll lead us into the voices in our head. See, being free from the fear of man means you can say whatever God tells you to say without fear of how they're going to respond. And you can be free for what they are saying without fear of being labeled. I don't know if you figured it out or not, but people are going to think and say what they're going to say anyway.
Yes,
Right.
that's right.
And when you get so free on the inside of you, then you just can let them talk and love them from a genuine heart. I'm not talking about, see, I don't like this business, this really deception that says you just love the hell out of them or just kill them with kindness. No, see, that's not genuine and it's not truth. There is such a thing as being so free that you really love people even whenever they're not walking in love with you. But you cannot do that in your own strength and with your own DNA. You're going to have to get his image.
That's right. That's right.
That means you're going to have a lot of face-to-face sometimes, and sometimes it's more than others. Sometimes the man, the woman, the daughter, the son in the mirror is going to have to go to the mirror 5 times a day to remind themselves that they're not of the world, but I've been born again. So I carry some fruit and some DNA of a place that ain't like here. It's not easy. But it's far more difficult to stay engaged in brokenness than it is to be free from it. Come on. It's easy to do the wrong thing. But it's freedom to do it his way.
Yes.
Come on, if you'll honor his ways and you'll meditate on his ways, you'll find yourself doing it the right way without having to think about it eventually. You hear me?
Yeah.
See, whenever you're making a transition and God is he's sculpting you and he's changing you, you got to be intentional for a while and you got to be conscious about it for a while until it becomes your habit.
Yeah.
Then after a while, your habit becomes a part of your actions. And then whenever people come at you, you don't think, if you only knew. See, my dad was a very hot-headed kind of guy. I was talking about it on the way with my oldest son, different things that he would say. He had a lot of sayings and they weren't good ones. They'd get you in a fight in about 2 seconds. But that was the way he was. He'd fight 15 people if they come at him and it'd make him no difference. You know? He'd give you the shirt off his back and he'd fight everybody for it. And I had to get free from the reputation and the fear of man because, see, my dad was the type of person that if you said something, there was no such thing as not saying something back. It did not exist in his vocabulary, ever. So when you're around that mindset, then it's easy to develop that mindset because this is what we do.
Right.
But we are too wrapped up in us, but we are supposed to be wrapped up in us. When we are wrapped up in us, I turn the cheek. When they curse you, you bless them.
That's right.
Yes, yes, yes.
Come on.
Amen.
Probably ain't going to win no awards for this message tonight, but if you'll do something about it, it'll change you.
Right.
See, I'm not talking about it's easy, but I'm talking about it's important.
That's right.
If you don't get free from you, then the enemy's just going to keep throwing the same old stuff at you, and you're going to get wrapped up in that mess every single time and then frustrated.
That's true.
It's too easy. Come on, make it a little bit hard for it. When people come at you, say, man, I love them. God bless you. I pray the Lord just prosper you.
Hallelujah.
Come on. And listen, I'm talking about doing it from a genuine heart, not out of Christianese, and not out of this is what we're supposed to do, brother, so we just do this because we're supposed to do this. And no, your heart ain't in that no more than you can fly. All you're doing is going through the motions, and you don't know more and mean it than anything else. That's not the same thing. A heart transformed does it from right here, and then the head catches up after the mouth has done said it. All right. I think I'm going to land on that thing right there. We're going to get into the voices in our head. I love saying that. I don't know why, but it's funny to me. I think it's because people have dealt with what I'm going to just kind of get into tonight and spend some time on, so much so, and they've been labeled crazy, but really, and some people are crazy, quite frankly, but they could get free from all that. And part of that is identifying what is what, right? All right.